Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Hi, Esther. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Strange Readings, a reference search into the unknown. And today I have a new guest with me. Her name is Esther. She is a librarian here at McAllen Public Library. Say hello, Esther.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So, Esther, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, what are your interests and things like that?
Well, I'm Esther Camacho. I work here at the McAllen Public Library, and I've been here a number of years, almost 10. Some of the interests I like are, of course, like fiction mystery. I like any types of mystery, history, paranormal, hauntings, that kind of stuff interests me. And of course, doing genealogy.
Awesome. And we have our first comment here. Hello, Nicole. We're glad to have you viewing us. So before we get started, I do want to give a PG-13 warning, meaning if anyone's under the age of 13, we're going to go over some topics that might not be advisable for you, especially right before bedtime. Just saying. Just saying. So Esther, what do you have an interest in true crime or unsolved mysteries?
Since I do like mysteries, yeah, there are some unsolved crimes I am interested in. I did follow the one with, and I can't think of her name. It's a Garza or Garcia, the one that had been deceased for like 60 years. I mean, 60 since the 60s, and
Oh.
found the suspect, and of course, I think he recently passed away last year. But
Oh.
finally convicted of the crime.
Yeah, was that the one with the she was a beauty contestant or?
I think she was a teacher because I know that
Oh, okay.
was that she had gone to church and that was the last time that they had seen her. So
Okay.
it was an interest because it took so long to solve that crime.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad it was solved, for her and their family.
Yeah, I'm glad they finally got closure.
Right.
But yeah, we are going to be doing a missing persons case, and I do have to advise that this is going to involve a child. So if this is if this doesn't work out for people, that this might be too harmful for them, I suggest to keep an eye out for any other episodes we have. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do the case on Asha Degree. So let me go ahead and see. I'm going to. All right, here you go. Do you see the presentation, Esther?
I do.
Okay, good. Let me just go ahead. Okay, perfect. So we're going to go ahead and read along with this case, and let's get started. Oops, I went a little ahead of myself. Okay, there you go. So Asha Degree was born August 5th, 1990. She was, by all accounts, a shy, quiet girl. Her aunt actually, described her as, she doesn't even open the door for me without her mother's permission, and I'm her aunt. Aquila Degree, her mom, basically described her as a soft-hearted child, saying that she would cry in all the sad parts in the movies. Asha attended Falston Elementary School, and she was described as an outstanding student. She had a great attendance record. She was also pretty athletic, and she enjoyed basketball, riding her bike, jumping the trampoline. She also loved to read and write, and was pretty good at math and science. She was actually a student of the week a lot in her class. She wanted to be an author and illustrator when she grew up. She was also afraid of dogs and thunderstorms, which we'll get into later. And she was, as described, sensitive, like the graveyard scene from Michael Jackson's Thriller. Do you remember that, Esther?
I remember that.
Yeah, that used to freak her out a lot. She did not like that scene. But her family, basically, were very, they were devoted to church. They didn't have internet, not because they were anti-technology, but around that time period, The internet was still relatively new to a lot of people's houses, and her mom didn't want the internet because, you hear all those stories of predators online for kids. But yeah.
Okay.
So, oops, I went ahead again. But yeah, so her family was a pretty normal family. Her parents were Harold and Nyquilla. Asha also had a brother that was older by 11 months. His name was O'Brien. They lived in a rural part of North Carolina in a 2-bedroom rented duplex. O'Brien and Asha were pretty close siblings. They lived in this. They shared the same bedroom. O'Brien liked to walk Asha to class, sometimes holding hands, and he was the one that actually helped her learn how to read. She also had a pretty close bond with her father. Her father was a dock loader, and her mom worked for Kuwait America, where she built pianos. So, which I think is a pretty interesting job.
Yeah.
But Asha was described as the type of child that didn't wander off. She was kind of kept independent. Her parents were had long hours at work, but the kids were expected to go home and work straight away with their homework and wait until they come home. But yeah, she was not allowed to ride her bike to the convenience store nearby. And like I said before, they didn't have a computer, as Asha's mother had concerns of, the children meeting, adults that could take advantage of them online. I remember that being a huge topic back then. So before she went missing, like I said, Asha had she was student of the week a lot, and she was awarded for being helpful by getting to pick a prize. She picked a black purse with a Tweety bird on it. This we'll be getting into later. So Friday, February 11th, I couldn't find out why, but the school was closed for the day. Like all the schools in the county were closed. I'm guessing for staff development day or something like that. And like it was pretty normal the weekend before she went missing. So O'Brien and Asha spent time with their aunt who lived down the street. Asha had basketball practice and then went home afterward. Her coach said that she was acting totally normal. Then Saturday, Asha and O'Brien both had basketball games at Burns Middle School. So the girls' game was played first, and Asha's team lost. Asha took it hard. She was crying. She felt that she disappointed her team because she had fouled out of the game. According to the coach, this was like the first game they lost in the season. Asha took it really hard. Asha's mom said that Asha felt bad, and she was claiming that her leg started to hurt. And Asha's mom was telling her, your leg is fine. Just go take a walk. And apparently Asha felt better after that. Now, according to her coach, all the girls were crying, not just Asha, and they had a good cry afterward because it was the first loss. Just a few minutes later, she was up and smiling and joking and having a good time. She didn't show any behavior or say anything that led me to believe she was unhappy. We joked like we normally do, and she was very happy sitting with her mom. And that night, Asha had a sleepover at her cousin's. They stayed up late to watch Soul Train and Showtime at the Apollo. So Sunday, this is the day before she went missing. Asha's parents picked her up and took her to church. They went to their aunt's home for lunch, and then they went home. Asha's grandma gave Asha some Valentine's Day candy and said she seemed pretty happy, pretty normal. Asha fell asleep around 6:30 p.m. and woke up from a thunderstorm 2 hours later. And then she went to the living room to watch television with the rest of the family for the rest of the evening. So that same night around 9 p.m., there was a motorcycle accident, and it caused an entire power outage in Asha's neighborhood. Asha had been preparing a bath for the kids, but decided to skip for that night. I imagine, giving a bath to 2 kids in the dark is not the most ideal setup.
Not easy.
She sent them both to bed, and that was that. So all in all, everything was normal. So Valentine's Day, which I think what adds more sadness to this case is that Valentine's Day was the wedding anniversary of Aisha's parents. So around midnight, February 14th, the power returned. 2:30 a.m., Harold went to the children's bedroom and saw that both kids were sleeping. He then went to his own bedroom. Now, according to Aisha's brother, he at some point in the night, he did hear Aisha move around. He assumed that she was just moving around in bed and went back to sleep. He was dozing in and out when he later heard her getting out of bed, but he thought he was just going to the bathroom. Which I can't imagine how he must be feeling after all this stuff. You know, he could hear her making noise and not thinking much of it. So around 5:45, Aisha's mom went to wake up the kids to get ready for school, but Aisha's bed was empty. I'm not a parent myself, but I feel like my nerves would already be jolting at that already.
Right. You know, it's kind of interesting that I'm sure he feels bad that he never fully woke up and turned around to see her get out of bed. And I'm sure that's what he thinks all this time is if I would have just turned over and just looked to see what she was doing, maybe he would do something. So
Yeah,
I'm sure it's very difficult for him.
yeah, like I know he does have a daughter around her age now, and I'm sure it's something that I mean, as an older sibling myself too, I can't imagine, you know, if I had just looked instead of just brushing it off.
Absolutely.
So Aisha's mom, you know, started searching the house, you know, and then she realized that Aisha's book bag and her house key were missing. So Aisha's grandma lived across the street, and excuse me, the grandma said that she wasn't there, and Harold called the police. You can actually find a transcript of Harold's 911 call. It's actually on the website dedicated to Aisha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting how we can get, like, there's certain areas we could get so much information on, and there's some other ones that are just like, where's the research on this? Where is this? Where can I find this source?
I wonder, have they ever mentioned whether she was a sleepwalker?
You know, I haven't found any resources saying that. But yeah, it gets more confusing though as this case goes on.
Okay.
So, because there were sightings which we'll get into later on. So there were sightings on a Highway 18, a couple miles away from where Aisha's family lived. Around 3:30 to 4 a.m., a truck driver, Jeff Rupp, spotted a girl of Aisha's description walking down the highway. He had turned his 10-wheeler around to seek her out. It was kind of hard for him though, because the highway is very narrow. And you know, I think people forget how hard it is for truck drivers to just maneuver around. Like, I think I read somewhere that some trucks too, like the trucks are like set up where they can only go a certain amount of speed. So just a heads up, in case you ever get impatient with a 10-wheeler in front of you, they probably can't go any faster.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's in a 10-wheeler, so they're going to be slow to stop. And yeah, if it's in a narrow highway or road, it's going to be impossible for him to turn that thing around.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And he did say that he saw a little girl walking down the road with her book bag. She had a little dress and white tennis shoes, and her hair was in pigtails. I went back, but she never did look up at me. She looked like she knew where she was going. She was walking a pretty good pace. That wasn't the only sighting. Around 4:15 a.m., Roy Blanton Sr. and his son, Roy Jr., were trucking on Highway 18 when they too spotted Aisha. I keep saying Asha every time I see her name, and it's actually Aisha. So Roy Sr. used his radio to notify other truck drivers to be on alert as they worried she might get hit. He was saying, he described the sighting as, it was a small figure wearing light-colored clothing. I thought it was a woman. I couldn't tell it was a child. Which, to be fair, it was supposed to be very rainy that night, so he probably couldn't see the best as he could. I thought that maybe it was a domestic violence thing where a woman left the house and was out walking. Roy Sr. didn't think much of it until Tuesday when his wife mentioned Asha's disappearance. That was when he reported it to the sheriff's deputies. Personally, I felt, I don't know, like I'm not blaming it on him or anything, but I am saying I do feel like if you see something weird like that, I don't think it hurts to report it. Like, hey, I saw this. I thought it was weird, just to let you know.
Well, yeah, it's kind of amazing that if they saw a child walking at 3 a.m., say, you know what, I think I better call the police. And we go to the police station, let me notify someone because maybe she could have been a runaway or she's lost. At 3 a.m., you do not see children walking on the side of the road.
Especially when it's raining. Like,
right.
It was raining that day, but I think sometimes, I think in those days we didn't have cell phones on hand. And I guess he just assumed, hey, she's probably lives nearby. I'm not gonna make a huge thing about it. It was a rural area, but yeah. Right. So the State Bureau of Investigation, FBI, who both got involved in this case, both felt that these sightings were legitimate. Like this probably was Asha. So the search. So the newspapers kind of contradicted one another. I think one of the truck drivers said that she was wearing a white dress, but in later stuff, I saw that she was wearing a white shirt, either blue jeans or white jeans and white tennis shoes. I don't know, maybe she was wearing her pajamas and then she had changed for a later sighting to like say she wore something differently. Yeah. It's a little confusing, and I'm assuming it was because of the rain. It was hard to tell, but yeah, it's a very confusing case. Asha had taken the black Tweety Bird purse, candy she had gone from the basketball game, and her house key. She also took a red vest with black trim, blue jeans with a red stripe on each side, and a white nylon long sleeve shirt, and a black and white long sleeve shirt and black overalls with Tweety Bird on it. Some sources are also saying that she took her nightgown and her basketball uniform.
So she was taking a trip.
Yeah, it looked like she had like she was packing for
something.
Yeah, and it's very confusing because we'll get later on. She didn't really fit the typical runaway statistics. She was kind of an outlier. Mm-hmm. So Aquila and Harold were immediately ruled out as suspects. The house was found to have all its doors locked. There was no sign of any forced entry. So it's very likely that Asha went out on her own accord. There was a full-scale search, and by noon, they even had a North Carolina helicopter with infrared heat detection equipment to look around. Search dogs were used in the investigation, but they turned up with nothing. And hundreds of volunteers of various ages, even kids Asha's age, and professionals went on a massive search in a 5-mile radius of North Carolina 18 and 180. People were taking it seriously. And this is where things get a little unnerving. So a mile away from the Degree home was this property of the Turner family. The truck driver who witnessed Asha on the road said that he saw her around that area. Now, the Turners had a upholstery business, and they kept an old doorless outbuilding to store their supplies. The investigation found in that shed a green marker, a yellow hair bow, and a 1996 Atlanta Olympics pencil. There were cellophane candy wrappers and a wallet-sized photo of a little girl that was not Asha. A neighbor that lived not too far from the Turner shed had 6 beagles, and he said that usually the beagles would be barking if someone approached the property, but that night he heard nothing. So, and the family said that everything belonged to Asha except for the photograph of the girl. They did not know who the girl in the photograph was, and no one has since identified who that girl in the photograph is and if it has any connections to Asha. I actually posted it up here. That was the best resolution I could get out of that photo. It was kind of tiny. And on February 17th, volunteers checked with the Turners about the candy wrappers. And Aisha's friends stated that that was the candy that Aisha's basketball team received at the Saturday night game. Yeah, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts?
Well, that's really strange that two kids maybe in the same location in like a pit stop, you know, and but the other child, they have no idea who that is. Couldn't figure out who that is.
Yeah, and I kind of had me have develop my own theory, which we could talk about at the end. But I keep thinking there's something spooky about that just never sit well with me. So February 20th, it was after several days, nothing else was found, and the official search got suspended. The sheriff of the county, though, did urge media to not ignore this case during a news conference. Like, they're really hoping that someone saw something where they could trace Aisha back to. So the aftermath, Aisha was put into a database of missing children by FBI and the state and the business. The State Bureau of Investigation. I always get those initials confused. But the investigators do believe that Aisha had planned to leave for several days prior to departure. A month after the disappearance, Aisha's family appeared on the Montel Williams Show, and America's Most Wanted and the Oprah Winfrey Show also devoted segments about the case. Now, in 2001, a construction worker came across Aisha's book bag. It had her name and phone number on it and other items at a highway around 26 miles from Shelby and about 40 miles north of where she was last seen. According to the sheriff, the book bag was wrapped in a black trash bag. Law enforcement did not specify exactly what was inside the bag, but newspaper later confirmed that it had a pencil case, paper, and some clothing. It was not specified what the clothing was, though. Because the site was more wild and with dense vegetation and high heat, the sheriff only allowed professionals to do the searching this time. He did not allow any volunteers. They could only find some animal bones and a pair of men's khaki pants. It wasn't clear if any of these would have any connection to Aisha. That was all they could find. This case also drew up some false leads. About 11 hours away from Shelby, on September 2003, a man named Danny Ray Johnson was charged for abducting and assaulting an 11-year-old girl. It was horrible. He left her in the woods tied to a tree, and he confessed to assaulting an 18-year-old girl at knife point. His brother was also pulled in for questioning as he was in the area, and he was convicted in the past for similar things. So Herbert provided hair and blood samples to authorities and claimed he and his brother had alibis. Herbert was in a psychiatric facility, and Danny was in jail in Virginia. Detectives later ruled him out for quote unquote for now. And then there was Donald Ferguson. Donald Ferguson was actually a former high school classmate of Aisha's mother. He had been arrested for the 1990 assault and murder of Shalonda Poole. It was another little girl. He was set free from February 2000 and lived about 40 miles from Shelby. However, they couldn't find anything else to link him to Aisha's disappearance. And I feel like he was too far away to have taken an interest on an old classmate's child. But that's just the skeptic in me.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised that it seemed like they ended the search too soon.
Mm-hmm.
A few days later, it's already been suspended. I would have think that they would have widened their search or somewhere else, and then a little bit wider to see if they can find her. Did they ever question any of the children that were on her team to see what they thought?
From what I understand, like they interviewed mainly the adults, but I think the snippets I've got of what other children said about Aisha, they normally just described it as what type of person she was. And I am curious now, thinking back on the slumber party, like Now, according to her cousin, she acted pretty normal on the sleepover, but I keep wondering, what did the other kids in that sleepover think? I mean, maybe she said something offhandedly that might have seemed normal at the time, but maybe adds a different meaning to this whole case. Now this whole case is going on.
Right. Well, since she seemed to have packed a bag, like she was going to go somewhere, I wonder if somebody invited her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what, get up real early in the morning and then just walk over here and you'll find me and we can go from here. You said she didn't fit the scenario as a runaway.
Oh yeah. So Nicole's asking like, what do they mean for now? Honestly, it sounds to me like they still suspect them just because they were around that area. They both had past I don't want to say issues because I feel like that's undermining that what they did with the things he did were horrible. But I know that one brother I think both were convicted. So yeah,
I wonder, did they ever do DNA on the trash bag?
Actually, it doesn't say from what I read. I was reading old archives of newspapers that someone thankfully took copies of because these are all from the Charlotte Observer, and the Charlotte Observer, like those papers in particular, they're offline. So kudos to the person that posted those. But yeah, I think unfortunately right now they couldn't like pinpoint anything except that, hey, these guys had done crimes with children before. They were not too far off, and I'm sure they have other suspects they haven't yet published online.
Right. Yeah, because if she was walking down the road, she obviously was comfortable enough to be out when it's wet after a thunderstorm, when she was already afraid of thunderstorms.
Mm-hmm.
I got the impression maybe she could have been invited. So, and then encouraged, you know what, walk over here, I'll meet with you. I kind of think maybe the people at the slumber party might have said something to her.
Mm-hmm.
Just an easy invite and just got tempted to go.
Yeah, I think that like she was afraid of thunderstorms, and I feel like she was probably told by someone like, "Hey, there's this thing we're doing. Come meet with us." Like she had a reason to go out,
Right.
and to relate it off of that, so this was a very confusing investigation for everyone involved because Asha did not meet any statistics typical of a runaway child. Most kids run away around the age of 12. She was around 10, 11 years old. And she also had good grades and she had a very close family bond, things runaways don't always have. I also read another statistic that around two-thirds of children, I guess this might be a newer statistic, that are usually around 14 to 17 years old. So many people feel that she was abducted rather than ran away.
Yeah, because she was awfully young.
Mm-hmm. So Asha's mother was interviewed in 2013 by Jet Magazine. So she was asked if she believed Asha had a different coverage compared to white children. She agreed. She was quoted as saying, "Most definitely. The white ladies are on every channel. We were on local channels. The only reason the Montel Williams show knew anything up is that the coach's sister went online and she reached out to all of them. But only Montel responded. Once the local channels found out we were going to the Montel Williams show, one of them flew up and they flew a reporter up too. Then we did an interview with that local channel. Missing white children get more attention. I don't understand why. I don't try to speculate. I know if you ask them, they'll say it's not racial. Oh, really? I'm not going to argue because I have common sense." So I could tell right away that the parents felt that things could have been taken more, especially going with your earlier comment that the search was kind of quick.
Yeah, that's why I was very surprised that the search ended so soon.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect to have really been more of an effort to try to find her.
Like a few more weeks.
Yes. So
Yeah.
is Is this a closed case now, or is it still an open case?
Oh, it's open, and they actually found some interesting things, and they're hoping that the public could help out with this. Like, to go off on that, missing white woman syndrome is a legitimate term. It was coined by a PBS anchor named Gwyneth Hill. Social scientists actually use this term to describe mainstream media's focus on missing or endangered middle-class white women and a lack of interest of cases involving missing people of color. Like, I don't know if you remember the Casey Anthony case.
Oh, yeah.
Well, apparently there was also a nearby case of a black toddler that was missing, but that case just took over the news channels and everything. Like, and unfortunately, that case kind of went underground in the back in the shadows, unfortunately.
Right.
I don't want to go. Yeah. Well, actually, I did find some statistics on some research by a sociologist. He he was pointing out, and you can actually find this study online, and NPR did a cover on this too. He was saying that, another problem that news coverage does is that they would repeat reports on the same missing white women, boosting their cases more to the mainstream compared to other cases. And unfortunately, it feels like each's case fell through the cracks. So the case did get reopened on February 2016, and it's being re-examined. And what's interesting is that around May 2016, FBI reported that they were searching for a dark green early 1970s Thunderbird or Lincoln Mark IV that had rust around the wheel wells. Apparently they're saying that they received information that someone matching Asha's description might have been seen getting into a distinctive vehicle along North Carolina 18, where Asha was last seen. So it would have to look like either of these two cars. And in October 2018, they had two other clues. They did not reveal any context as to why these clues would be related to Asha's case. But the first clue was a Dr. Seuss book, which was from Asha's school's library that was checked out sometime in the early 2000s. They don't know if Asha had checked this out because records don't go far enough for that. And another clue was that there was a New Kids on the Block t-shirt. There were other discoveries made that were not announced to the public. I'm guessing, based on me watching Lifetime movies, they're keeping certain details out, so they wanted to make sure that whoever, if someone says something without thinking, they would say something that the public would know, and only someone involved in this case would. That's my guessing, my guesstimate. I mean, what do you think, Esther?
It just, it's so hard when you have vehicles now that they are starting to tie in for something that happened 20 years ago. Is there a way to kind of trace who may have owned vehicles at that time? I'm sure they can.
I mean, they should keep solid records of that somehow, maybe around that area. I feel like there's been other cases that have been resolved that way, but maybe I'm blaming my cousin Vinny for me thinking that.
Has there been any other children missing after her at that same location that you are aware of?
No, I haven't seen anything about potential ties. And that girl in that photograph has still not been identified, which kind of surprises me because I feel like, now that everything's online, everything is more me. I know I keep saying this word mainstream, but I feel like this case is getting more light upon it. Recently, I believe there was a petition asking for this case to be featured on the new Unsolved Mysteries.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because they're hoping that we could get new info that way.
Well, I'm surprised we do have that unidentified child that someone doesn't recognize her.
Mm-hmm. It looks like a school photo, and I keep thinking,
it does.
Did they go through all the county schools to see who this might be in the past or something? And I am a little confused about the clues too, like what they would have to do with Aisha, because Aisha was around 11 years old. And I feel like New Kids on the Block was something that was more of an interest for for teenagers.
Yeah.
And Dr. Seuss book might be for kids that were younger. So I'm kind of curious, like how that both those things got tied to Aisha.
And the slumber party that she was invited to, how old were the kids that were in that? Were they teenagers?
I think some of them they were around, I think there were a few different ages, but I think it was mostly, kids her age, maybe a little bit older. Yeah, they didn't really give too much details on the sleepover.
Yeah, I would have thought that maybe they'll go back and re-examine those people that were involved in over, because this happened after the sleepover.
Right.
I'm thinking there's got to be some sort of connection as to maybe someone said something to her, invited her somewhere. It was just too good for her to pass up. Because kids are very impressionable. You can tell them, hey, go help me find my puppy, and they'll get up and do it.
Yeah, and from the way he described, I think another person described Aisha as being the type of person, like, if there was a kid that had no friends in recess, she would try to play with that kid.
Yeah.
Like, she had a very soft heart. And I think that kind of led to my own theory. I mean, I guess I could share you my own theory. I think either an adult or a kid, I'm thinking maybe an adult showed her a picture of this little girl that was found in the shed and told her, like, hey, my child wants to play with someone. Would you like to play with her? And that's why Aisha decided to pack up and go see this child. That's my own little theory. I'm not saying it's legit or not, but she had
been invited and somebody was waiting for her. She had to walk away. So I wonder how, by the time that the truck drivers saw her on the street, how far away was that from her house?
It was around a couple of miles. Geography is not my best, but it's like it's not impossible for her to be seen at those times, and her, like, especially the distance from her home to the highway. She lived in a rural area, so I think she was familiar with that area because they described her as being very sure and confident of where she was going.
Well, that's really odd for an 11-year-old. Just be taking off. I mean, how many 11-year-olds do you think would actually go, oh yeah, I'm going to get up at 3 a.m. and I'm going to take off and go down the street,
Yeah, and I keep thinking, then if that car was involved with that car, maybe that person was saying, like, hey, it wants you to see this car, just get inside.
Right.
Like, maybe Aisha thought that she wasn't not going to be by herself on the highway for too long. Like, she was really sure that someone was there. And I've seen other people comment that the car was described as being a two-seater, so there's likely two people involved. I mean, I don't have the resources to back that up. It's just hearsay, but I'm thinking, okay, then I've heard of cases too where couples have kidnapped children. So I'm kind of curious if it was more than one person involved in this case.
Right.
But
I wonder how, I'm assuming she was enticed to go outside. And, for something at 3 a.m. to, somebody had to have access to the house to maybe wake her up. I mean, how often do kids actually get up? Once they go to sleep, they go to sleep. But, to be so quiet to get up and leave the house.
I feel like she probably was secretly, she was probably pretending to be asleep now that I think about it, because I'm just going through what I would have done as an 11-year-old. Like, if I knew that I would crash during the night, I would be like, no, I'll stay up awake all night, and then I'm going to go out, once I know my family is asleep.
Right. Well, for being an 11-year-old, I'm surprised that she didn't, and she had this close bond with her parents, that they were very close, that she didn't open up and say, Mom, I'm going to go have another sleepover. Not to at all. And, you know, if someone did tell her, hey, come over to my place for a sleepover, I only live 5 miles down the road, she would at least say something. And even to her brother, I'm going to go sleep over, you know.
Mm-hmm. And
just odd that somebody would tell her, you know, you're going to have a sleepover at my place, but don't tell anybody.
yeah, it feels like either they framed it as like, hey, this is a secret between us.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Aisha was a well-behaved kid, but sometimes kids will test that and they'll do something that might seem out of character otherwise. Like to go off what Nicole is saying here, it seems like someone convinced her to leave home, and they had to have had set up a very good reason for her to like disobey what she normally obeyed.
Right. You know, my personal opinion, I don't think they interviewed enough people.
Mm-hmm.
Interviewed everybody, and maybe they did. I don't have the police report, but they should have interviewed everybody in the sleepover.
Mm-hmm.
Parents were there. Who else went to go visit the parents?
Mm-hmm.
Get as much information as to what happened there. And I mean, it didn't look like she had a history of sleepwalking. But normally when somebody sleepwalks, they do not pack up a bag.
No.
Get up and go.
Yeah, I think there's something that was very pre-planned about this. And who knows how long this was planned for. Maybe this was planned for a month or something.
Right.
I mean,
and normally when there's a predator out there, they don't always go by just at the spur of the moment. I mean, they do in some cases, but other times they tend to plan it out.
Yeah, and I think
the perfect crime.
Yeah, and there's also this misconception, like for a lot of people, they think that when a person abducts a child, it's a stranger, but often enough, it's someone they know, or at least
Someone they know, yes. And in this case, maybe this could have been a cousin or a relative that told her, hey, I'm going to pick you up. And your parents already said yes. And don't wake them up because I already told them that I'm going to come get you.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe a family friend.
I just don't understand why, are they for sure that was a person that they saw on the highway?
Or was it someone at school too? Because
Right.
if the family had nothing to do with this, I think people forget that things go on in school that you have no clue about.
True. That is so true. Because I mean, I'm sure they probably did some extensive interviewing with teachers and classmates. They re-interviewed some of those people to find out, remember, because maybe there's a clue that someone, you know, said, oh, by the way, I saw that car outside our schoolyard, you know, or this was, that was her cousin, you know, there's some sort of clue.
Yeah. So Aisha's parents, like her mom in particular, she still believes that her daughter is still alive. And I do want to point out that Aisha was a month older than me. So she would be around my age. She'd be turning 30 this year, which, you know, just to show you a little age progression photo, this is what the FBI did. This is what she would look like now if she was still known to be around. I mean, I want to say she's still alive, but they're just, I don't know. I just don't know.
But I do recall reading about a young man who was, he was adopted as a boy, and it was a family member who did take him and then just disappeared. As they assumed that the person that took him and him were already long gone, that they were. And sure enough, he recognized himself on the carton of a milk carton.
Oh yeah, I think I have.
That's what it looks like me, and sure enough, the details matched. It was actually him. That he had been missing all this time. I think he went with a parent or a relative, and he didn't realize he was taken.
I wonder now. I'm having this idea like maybe this person told Aisha that her family was gone or something, or they were just. No, this is speculation. I
It's a
think.
pretty bizarre case, and I mean, it's a very sad case.
Mhm.
Hopefully she's still out there, and maybe she'll recognize herself.
Yeah, Aquila actually, so every year, Aquila actually does host a special walk around, to commemorate Aisha's memory. And, I get and to hope that, and hope that this will spread word and someone will know something to come forward. She used to host the marathon on Valentine's Day, the day she disappeared, but she changed it to some other date in February because she didn't want people to feel terrible about this event the day of Valentine's. So
Right. Yeah, that is an odd day for this to happen, you know.
yeah, and Bryant, he has a daughter that's around Aisha's age, and yeah, the family, they still, they're hoping she's still alive, and they're hoping she and them can reach one day. But yeah, it's a confusing story with so many leads, but no conclusions.
Right.
But I
Yeah,
will
it
say,
is. It's very sad, and I hope that they do find that clue. I think if they can identify that child in that photo,
mhm,
that maybe that would provide some clue.
yeah, because
So the property that was found in, did they ever investigate that family?
it sounds like I think they interviewed them about the shed, but I don't think they went too deeply into the background because the Turner family seemed pretty unrelated to the Degree family. Like I only knew about the husband and wife. I don't know if they had kids or not. So
Or other people that stayed on the property?
yeah, I mean, now that you brought it up, there are some aspects of this investigation I feel they only touched surface level. So yeah, I'm
Right,
very.
because I would definitely think that you could probably identify that picture, because that looks like a school picture.
Mhm.
Got to be someone's got to recognize that child.
And yeah, and I keep
If
thinking.
that's a missing child,
Mhm.
where are the parents? Are they not saying anything? Where's the family saying, we're missing our child?
And I keep thinking too, like this child, like the school photo, it can't be a coincidence. Like you don't just lose a school photo like that in a specific area, like a tool shed in the random rural part of North Carolina, where
Correct.
neighbors are like spread apart. Like
Right. And I mean, because are kids familiar with that shed? No, it's normally going to be, adults that know about a shed.
mhm.
And so why would a picture and other stuff show up that would be for kids show up in that particular shed? Because that picture looks like the same age as Aisha, right?
Yeah, like around 10, 11, maybe 10 years old. Yeah, that's yeah. I really do think that maybe that photo was used in some way to call Aisha out.
Maybe so. So did they ever find her purse?
I think so. This is very confusing. I feel like there were some inconsistencies with some newspapers because they would say that she had different things on her, like maybe she had her basketball uniform at one point, and I'm like, how are they not sure she had her basketball uniform with her? I feel like that's a very specific clothing item.
Right.
I mean, I guess as a historian, sometimes newspapers have a few inconsistencies. I'm sure they have it less now since everything's computerized and it's easier to keep double check on things. But yeah, there were some inconsistencies, and at first I thought the school bag was the purse, but then I'm like, then why didn't they mention the school? And I feel like, didn't they mention that earlier? Yeah, it's a little weird.
Did the family ever say that there were things missing in the house?
hmm Her house key was gone, which actually does make me think that she was planning on coming back. And her
change of clothes.
Yeah, she had 2 or 3 changes of clothes. So I keep thinking, was she promised a sleepover somewhere, or
And that's what I'm thinking, that maybe she was, saying, hey, come to my sleepover, you know,
Mhm.
and find out. I mean, that's because they really need to interview those people in the sleepover, and find out what they remember.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean anyone
And
else.
find out if he knew somebody that happened to be in.
Yeah, I think if anything, anyone's welcome to share their own theories, but yeah, I feel she was beckoned. I feel like this is more of an abduction case because I know some people are thinking maybe she got injured somewhere and was left there, and I'm like, no, the dogs would have smelled her. She couldn't have.
Right.
And I read something that was very interesting. Apparently, because I assumed that because it was raining, that the dogs would have a harder time smelling her out. But apparently, when it's raining, the moisture brings out more scents, so the dogs would have had an easier time of sniffing her down. So,
Right. Or they got confused with someone's scent out there.
mhm. Yeah, this honestly, this is like one of those cases that's going to sit with me for a while.
Right. I think that, and I don't want to point the finger, but I think that there should have been more of an effort on law enforcement's part to widen the search on this at that time. Now we can say that,
Mhm.
but I don't know, maybe they had limited resources, maybe they just felt like they've covered everything.
Mhm.
So I think now, and it's, you're looking at what, almost 20 years later,
Yeah.
having an open case and trying to retrace this again. That makes it a little bit more difficult, but I'm hoping if they do interview or re-interview the family and the friends that knew her and the school, the teachers and her classmates, perhaps they will as an adult remember something that will stick out, that would help offer another clue as to what happened to her.
Yeah, Debony, her own theory is that she left willingly, and unfortunately, something happened to her. Like maybe someone saw her too, and Aisha wanted to go someplace, and along the way, someone saw her on the street and picked her up and told her like, "Hey, we're on our way over there. Why don't we, drop you off?" Yeah, I mean that's another theory I can totally see happening as well.
Yeah, because it didn't seem that she went out struggling. Something was. I mean, she packed up her bag. She was ready to go. So, she did go willingly. It's just to find out, where did she go and who took her.
And that house key made me, she was definitely planning on coming back. So
Right.
this couldn't have been like, I'm so upset with this basketball game. I'm going to go run away from home. I feel terrible. I hate this. She was planning on coming back.
Yeah.
So it sounds like she felt like there was this duty she had to attend to, and like, let me get this done and I'll come back. I think, yeah, I hope this case does get featured in the new Unsolved Mysteries. I know this new format. I haven't watched it yet. They do episodes not on different segments. They focus entirely on one thing, to my understanding. And I feel this case should have an episode dedicated entirely about it.
Well, I think that for those that are listening, perhaps y'all can encourage this new series. Focus on her.
Definitely.
Send them an email, contact them and say, hey, we'd like for you to focus on this young girl that's been gone, and we'd like to come to a good conclusion on this. Let's find out what happened to her, not let this be in the back burner, because everybody needs closure to this, even those that aren't even related, but knew this has happened to her. We all still want to know, what happened to her. We want to find that finale as to, did she just start a new life? Did Is she somewhere else as a grown up that does she not recognize this as her? Because if she was adopted, they would just give her a new name, and maybe she doesn't remember her younger part.
And I'm kind of going back and forth on that because she's 11 years old. She's kind of at that stage where, you know, it's not the same as like kidnapping a 3 or 4 year old saying like, hey, your name is this now. But, you know, who knows? Maybe they brainwashed her in some way about that.
Yeah, I would think even at that age, they will start accepting their new identity as a means of survival.
Mhm.
So I think as a child that, you know, you would be kind of threatened, you're frightened, you know, your name now is Mary. Okay, I'm Mary. And then they tend to start losing their
Mhm.
identity and then accepting their new life because no one has found them.
Yeah.
She's out there. Does she think that they don't care anymore? That all this time nobody could find her?
Yeah, I hope that if she is alive, I hope that her parents are able to reunite with her. Like, this was a very loved girl. And to go off on Debony's comment, yeah, it was a total tragedy. And, you know, she was hopeful to return, but there were ugly surroundings. And maybe she ran into some people that were ill of some kind of way that she was prevented.
Right.
But I did post up here that if anyone has any information, this is also going to be likely uploaded to YouTube. The FBI, Cleveland County Sheriff's Office, and Crime Stoppers. We have the phone numbers here. If anyone knows anything of what we laid out for you, go ahead and contact these authorities. But thank you so much, Esther, for your first appearance on Strange Readings.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Find out what happened to Asha.
Yes. And you're going to be showing up in our next episode featuring birds. How are they involved? We're not going to share just yet, but
And that will be an interesting one as well.
local history involved.
Correct.
All right. You have a great one, Esther.
You too, and thank you for inviting me.
All right. Take care. Bye.